Hi everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the Crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we have a Dollar Tree DIY, a few different projects today. So let's go over our supplies for our first project. We're going to use one of these signs from the Dollar Tree, also one of their sunflower metal stakes for the yard, the Harvest DIY word pack, and a hot glue gun. We're also going to be needing some scissors. And we'll use some antiquing wax or some stain. If you don't have that, you can also use a furniture scratch marker. We'll also be using a Sharpie. So let's get crafty. This first one's super easy. It doesn't take any time at all. Now I wanted to take my ladder. It's going to be a sign that I lean on a shelf next to some other decor like pumpkins and things. So I'm just going to remove the hanger off of the top of the ladder. If you want to hang yours back up, then go ahead and leave that hanger on the top. It's really just whatever you want to do with your ladder when it's finished. Now we're going to take the flat end of either a screwdriver or an X-Acto knife. We're going to gently lift underneath the edges of the word home. And this is to remove those little teeny tiny tack nails and to help lift the word up off of the ladder without destroying the ladder or the word home. So it's really nicely painted and well put together, and it could be used in another craft later on. Now we're going to take one of these metal sunflower stakes and take the stake off of the back. Just kind of pulls right off. And then we are going to use this to add to our ladder. As you can see, there's already some greenery stapled to the front of the ladder. I'm going to leave that on. And then I position the sunflower right where I want it to be and take some of those leaves and tuck it up underneath that spiral that they have in the center of the flower, and just enough to kind of tie it together where it looks like it was meant to be there. And it helps hold the sunflower in place actually while you are attaching it from the back. So once we have that little bit of that greenery tucked underneath of the spiral, you can go ahead and flip that ladder over and then use some hot glue to attach the ladder to anywhere that the sunflower touches it. So I just lift up a little bit and then tuck some hot glue underneath of the sunflower and ladder to connect those together. There is still a little piece on the back of the sunflower where the metal stake was held on. If you want to, you can actually use that and use a little bit of floral wire to help hold your sunflower to your ladder. I felt like the hot glue was enough and not really necessary to go an extra step. Now for our fall words, we're going to use the one that says Hello Fall. I'm using just a tiny little bit of antiquing wax and a small paintbrush to lightly brush over the words Hello Fall. And then if the paint just looks a little bit too heavy, which I thought it did for mine, I ended up going back over it with a dry paper towel just to kind of buff off some of the excess stain. And that way I wouldn't have it too dark in one spot and too light in another. I wanted a really nice even finish. We'll allow that to dry, and then once it dries, I'm going to mark exactly where it's going to go on the ladder. That way I know where to put my glue and I don't have glue all over the place that you're able to see. I put some glue on the ladder and then hold the Hello Fall down on either side to make sure that it is touching the glue. And then I clean up any glue that's peeking out from the sides. Clean that up so it's not visible from the front. But I thought the word was a little bit hard to visualize. It kind of blends into the background. And because all the letters are touching and there's no definite border between each letter, sometimes going in with a darker color really helps just to add a tiny little bit to the edge of those letters. And that helps those letters to pop off the background and make them much easier to read. So that's what we're doing here with the Sharpie. You could also use a paint marker. You can use those stain markers like I showed earlier. You could use some watered down paint if you like. It's really up to you. And here's what it looks like with the black lettering. Like I said, this was a super easy craft today. We're just going to lean this on a shelf with some like pumpkins and other flowers. And so here it is all finished. Super easy, nice and quick. Just a little change up from the ladders that they carry all the time. Now for our second project today, the supplies we're going to need will be some scrapbooking paper. I picked these up from Hobby Lobby. We'll also use some Mod Podge. We're going to need some paint of various colors and some paintbrushes, some scissors. We'll need some hot glue. We're also going to use some craft sticks And then some raffia. I'm using a hula skirt and some decorative pieces from the Dollar Tree for fall. A mason jar sign. There's lots of versions out right now. They had some out over the summer for the 4th of July, some different signs which you might have on hand. And they have some out for fall right now as well. We'll need a pencil, some masking tape, and some glitter. And then we're going to need some ribbon. So let's get crafty. So I think this is my favorite craft today. We are going to take this scrapbooking paper and lay it underneath of our mason jar, just so we can see the top portion. And we're going to trace around the top portion of that sign on our scrapbook paper. And we'll need 2 of these because I'm going to make 2 different signs here. So we're just going to layer the paper and cut both of these out at the same time, just to kind of save time. If you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, then go ahead and trace both of them and go ahead and cut them out separate. I just want mine to both be exactly the same size. I could have cut one out and then traced it on the next piece of paper. Like I said, I'm trying to save time, so I'm just going to cut both of them out at the same time. Like I said, if you don't have these mason jar signs that Dollar Tree sells, they have a few different ones out. I just saw 2 yesterday at the Dollar Tree for fall. They have the mason jar signs. They have like the little red truck on it. They had those out last year, and they do have those out right now. So you could use those in place of these signs that I have here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure it fits up here at the top. And then we're going to take a pencil and mark our sign where this paper is going to sit. And now what we'll do is take our masking tape and we're going to tape off this top portion so that we don't accidentally get paint on it and then have to wait for the whole entire thing to dry. We'll also tape off the stand because we don't want any paint on the stand. And I'll do this for both of the signs. We're going to tape all the way around the stand to make sure no paint will get underneath of it. And now we're going to paint our sign. So I am using this color called Light Mocha by Apple Barrel Paint. Any paint will do, whatever color you would like to use. It doesn't have to be Apple Barrel Paint. You can use the Dollar Tree paints. We're just going to do our first coat. So since these are so dark and I put on a light coat of paint, I didn't sand it down first. I did end up doing 2 coats of paint. I wanted to make sure that that writing underneath was not going to be visible. So we do our first coat, we'll allow the whole thing to dry, and then we'll do our second coat of paint and then re-evaluate and see if we need a 3rd coat. I'm pretty sure we just did 2 coats here. Now that I'm looking at it, you can definitely tell that the second coat was the magic touch. We really didn't need any more paint. Now we can go ahead and remove the tape. We have this nice crisp line where our hat's going to go. We didn't have to wait for it to dry or worry about the paint not letting our paper attach to the backing. So now taking a little bit of Mod Podge and a brush or a sponge of your choice, we're going to add a little bit of Mod Podge to the top of our mason jar signs. Just a thin coat, doesn't have to be too thick. Just make sure you pay special attention to the edges. You don't want the edges to lift up over time. And once you have the Mod Podge on, go ahead and line up that paper on the top portion of your mason jar. And then once the whole thing is dry and it's been drying for a few minutes and you don't have any wrinkles from the Mod Podge, go ahead if you want and seal the top, the paper, if you feel like it needs it. I did not seal the paper on the top. These are going to be kept indoors. I really didn't think it was going to need to be sealed at all, so I just left mine as is. But it's really up to you if you want to seal this now. Now we're going to take these large craft sticks and we're going to cut the ends off to make them square. We're basically making the brim of a hat. And it's going to take 2 because they're a little bit too short. So I'm just marking with a pencil about how far out I'm going to want the brim of the hat to go. And I want them to be equal length hanging off the sides of the mason jar. I'm just eyeballing it. You can measure if you want. I think if you just get it pretty close, it'll be fine. We're using some scissors just to cut through the craft sticks. So I've got my brim of my hat figured out. And I'm going to use the first one that I cut to mark how short, I need the ones for the second hat. That way they're both the same and I don't have to try to make them exactly the same. Just use that as your template. And I always check to make sure that I've got the measurements correct or if it needs trimmed at all. If it does, you can just go ahead and trim off that little excess. And now we're going to go ahead and paint the hat. So the first one I'm going to do with like a sunflower yellow. And make sure you get those edges because you are going to see the edges. The way that these are glued on, you'll see that top and bottom and the sides. You only have to paint one side of these. You don't have to paint the back. It's actually better if you don't paint the back, then you can glue these on a little bit quicker. For the second hat, we're going to use this really pretty blue color. Think of like the little blue trucks they have out for fall. That's what color we're using here. And I basically pick colors that would coordinate with the scrapbook paper that we are using. So once those are painted, we'll set these aside and allow them to completely dry. And while they're drying, we'll work on adding the raffia to the sides of our jars to make hair. Now these are from the hula skirts that the Dollar Tree sells every year over the summer. I bought one hula skirt, I think 2 years ago, and I'm still using it in craft. Sometimes I'll use a couple pieces to make a bow for a little accent. Sometimes we'll use it for things like this to make hair. But I'm telling you, if you get like one adult hula skirt and just kind of hold on to it, you'll use those little pieces off and on. They always come in handy. So once we've got the hair down, we're going to glue the top of the hat over top of the hair. So it is layered underneath of the brim of this hat. And always check your spacing before you glue these pieces down for the hat. You want to make sure that you have them spaced right so that you don't have them too far to the left or the right and not have the right spacing for the brim of the hat on either side. So I always check first and then I glue the pieces down. You want to get it just a little bit over that scrapbook paper, but not too high. Now we'll take some Dollar Tree accent pieces. We've got these die cut leaves. We're going to paint one of them yellow. I'm using the same yellow that I used for the brim of the hat. Just add a little bit of paint. Then I sprinkle that with some glitter while it's wet. And then we didn't even have to put any Mod Podge on it. I'm also taking some ribbon. This is a Dollar Tree ribbon. I cut a few pieces, about 2.5 to 3 inches long, and we just layer these in an X pattern and then tie them with a piece of floral wire. You can use twine. You can glue them together if you want. Just wrap some more ribbon around the center. It's really up to you. But once I have the floral wire wrapped around the center, then I'll fluff the bow up and try to, spread out all those pieces there. And we'll glue the bow right to the brim of the hat, and we'll glue the leaf to the front of the bow. Now we'll do another bow for the second scarecrow. We're just doing an X pattern. And then we'll layer it with some sunflower ribbon, also from Dollar Tree. And then we'll put a sunflower right in the middle. All of those came from the Dollar Tree. I felt like this one needed a little bit of greenery, so I put a little bit of greenery under the flower on either side. Now we're going to take our pencil and we're going to lightly draw in the face of our scarecrow. So we do a triangle for the nose, just a wavy line for the mouth with a few little X's to look like stitching. And for the eyes, we're going to try to get 2 circles about the same size on either side of the nose and little dots for the eyes. We'll do a tiny little eyelash on either side. And then we're going to go ahead and stick with the mason jar theme here. And we're going to draw a curved line on the side, the rounded bottom. We're just lightly stenciling this in with our pencil underneath the hair. And then on the side here, we'll do a curve and a few little lines to represent the shine off of the glass. We do the exact same face for our other scarecrow. Now we'll go ahead and paint this in. So we're using pumpkin orange for the nose. You can use paint markers here. If you don't have too steady of a hand, a paint marker would be great to use for the face if you guys have those on hand. Sometimes Dollar Tree has those Crafter Square paint markers. They sell out really quickly, but if you could find them, especially as we get closer to Christmas, they usually will put those out. They're hanging on those plastic strips down the aisles, and they have quite a few different colors that you can purchase each year, but they'll go quickly. So if you see them and you wanted to get some inexpensive paint markers that work really well, that's when I would keep my eye out for those markers. So again, we're just going to go over the little eyelashes here with the black paint. And I take the end of my paintbrush and I'll do little white dots for the eye. But for the mouth, we're just painting that squiggly line. I just use a very small detail brush. We'll do the X's for the mouth. And I decided to go ahead and make some stitching for the nose. So I do some little dots, like stitch marks around the outside border of the nose, and a few little lines to look like stitches coming off of the sides. Now for the eyes, like I said, I'm using the end of the paintbrush to just make these little dots. And then we'll take a little bit of almost like a watered down paint. So I dip the paintbrush in water, then I dip it in the paint just to help it smear better and quickly so I could get these nice smooth lines. It just helps to move the paint on the mason jar here. So a wet paintbrush will be your friend for this part. Not dripping wet, just a little tiny bit of water. We're doing our glare with the white paint. And then a couple little lines down the side. Now we've got our mason jar shape. And then I felt like he needed some rosy cheeks. So we're taking really light pink paint on a very dry brush. And we're just going to paint a little circle here. As you can see, I have just a teeny tiny little bit of paint. You could barely see it. We just want a very light rosy cheek. And then we'll go ahead and fill in the corners of the mouth to make the cheeks there. And there's our first mason jar scarecrow. Then the hat looked a little bland to me, so I went over the edges with some dark brown paint. And I filled in a few crease marks to make it look more like a hat and less like the top of a jar. We'll just fill in some brown paint for the creases there. We'll do the same for the other side. Less is more. Always start with less. You can add more if you need to. And here's what the hat looks like. And here's both of our scarecrows. I love these so much. They were so much fun to make. Now for our third project today, the supplies we're going to need will be one of these windows. We'll need some ribbon. Also some greenery from the Dollar Tree. We need a large sunflower, some of this floral tape. Let's get crafty. This one's super easy also. We're going to remove the sign from the middle of the window. And then we're going to take some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. Just enough to wrap all the way around the center of the window. We'll add some hot glue right to the middle and center the ribbon. And then wrap it around the back and just overlap. We want to pull that as tight as we can get it. So we'll add a few little spots of glue on the back and then pull that ribbon really tight and hold it in place while it dries. Be careful not to burn yourself, and then go ahead and pull the rest of that ribbon, adding more glue to the back and pulling it as tight as you can get it. I'm using a craft stick to help push it down so I don't get burned. Now we'll take a little bit of greenery and we're going to glue 2 pieces together so that they fit all the way across the window and hang over the sides a little bit. Then I'll take some floral tape and wrap that around the middle of the stems here just to help hold them together. That way when I hang this up on my front door, I don't have to worry about the glue melting. It gets pretty hot here. So we'll glue this to the front of our window. And then I actually went in with some wire and also wired that to the front. Like I said, this will go on my front door. Now we're taking the large sunflower and we're going to glue that to the middle. And then I take these small pieces of ribbon. I use a dovetail cut on the ends. And then I just fold them, kind of like a fan, add a little bit of hot glue and tuck them up underneath of the sunflower. And I just keep filling in around the sides of the sunflower until I have it the way I like it. So you could add more, you could add less, you could add a different color ribbon. It's really up to you. You can add no ribbon, you can add more flowers if you like. It's really up to you. So as you can see, I just fan fold them and then kind of use a little bit of hot glue to glue the ends together. And then I add a little bit of glue underneath of the sunflower and then tuck that ribbon underneath. I just keep layering the ribbon all the way around until I get this to look like I envisioned. So we did 3 pieces on each side and we'll add a hanger to the back. Now for our 4th project, we'll need another one of the windows from the Dollar Tree. We're going to use these small glass jars, also from Dollar Tree. They're floral wire. We're going to use some adhesive pearl wrap and the dog nail clippers. These are great for cutting wire and flowers. We'll need some greenery or flowers and some scissors. We're also going to need some hot glue. So let's get crafty making our last project today. Again, we're going to remove that sign from the center, remove the extra glue. And then these small jars, we're going to take the lids off. We'll need 3 of them and the floral wire. So we're going to cut a small piece of floral wire. And for the first one, I did this one a little bit different. So I create like an X pattern around the center of the window pane. And I just twist and then I put the wire back through the front. So I have both pieces in the front here and we'll twist it one more time. And now we can wrap that wire around the lip of the jar. And I twist to hold it nice and tight. And then I'll pull that wire around to the back and twist it a few more times. And I just keep repeating the process where I wrap it around the front, wrap it back to the back, and just keep wrapping it around the jar. If it's a little loose, go ahead and give the whole jar a spin and that will tighten up the wire. And you want it to stay nice and centered in the middle of that window pane. So now for the second one, I thought maybe I could make it a little bit easier. So I created a loop and I wrapped that around the lip of the jar. And then I twisted a few times to get it nice and tight on the jar. And I make sure I still have 2 pieces. And then we'll hold that in place and wrap the wire around the window pane just like we did before, creating an X pattern. And we'll wrap the wire around the front, give it a twist, and then push it back to the back again and do the same thing. You want to just hold this nice and secure. It's not going to hold anything heavy, so it doesn't really need to be crazy attached here. But you'll want enough that it looks like it's going to hold and stay in place. And now for the last one, again, we made the loop. We put it around the lip of the jar. And then we just twist and keep wrapping it around. And give it another twist. Until we have a nice tight hold on the top of the jar. And then hold it in place in the window. And create that X pattern and then wrap it around the jar again. So there's all different ways that you can attach this, but I really thought it was a lot easier to create the loop, wrap it around the top of the jar to attach it, and then attach it to the window. The second and third one were much easier to put on than the first one was, and it was easier to get it to stay in place. Now we'll cut all the excess wire off the back and position our jars. And then I add a very tiny dot of hot glue behind the jar to make sure that they stay upright. Now we're going to take some adhesive Pro Wrap and figure out how long we need it to be to go around the top portion of the jar. And then we'll cut 3 pieces exactly the same length. I chose to use the gold. I just felt like it helped it to pop off of the background a little bit and add a nice decorative detail. We'll remove that backing and then center it on your jar right in the middle and then wrap it around to the sides. If you want to add some hot glue to the jar before you attach it, you can. These are very sticky, so I do not think it is necessary, but it's really up to you if you want to attach it with some hot glue. Again, you want to put the middle on first and then wrap the ends around the sides to make sure you have enough to go all the way around on either side without leaving a blank space, just in case you cut it a little short. And here's what it looks like so far. And then we took some small sunflowers from the Dollar Tree and we just put those in them like they are a vase. And I absolutely love this one. I think it's so cute. I just have it leaning on a shelf in my home and it looks so pretty with some eucalyptus and other flowers and things around it. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the projects that we came up with today for fall to share with you guys. I really had a lot of fun making them for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It would really help me out. And I hope you guys have a great week and I'll see you next time.